Thank you, Joe. It's a delight to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm standing in for Herman today. He was invited, but because of the diagnosis of cancer, and he's about halfway through his radiation treatments right now, Herman serves as the Vice President of Bible Basics International. And so again, we encourage you to pray for him. That'll be one of the things at the end we'll ask prayer for. Well, let me start by saying this. The earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. That is a great promise, isn't it? Yeah. That promise is accomplished through God's people who are faithful in proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ, which is all about the glory of God, to those across the street and those around the world. Therefore, God's mission and God's purpose is worthy of our attention and of our worship, of our adoration, of our committing to Him in everything that we do, so that the gospel is central to us in our local lives and ministries, and in ministries throughout the world. So it's a delight to be here today to talk to you a little bit about Bible Basics International and how God has simply used us to help churches make disciples. I refer to us as a missionary serving agency. Oftentimes, agencies are known as sending agencies. So the local church who sends. We're here just to serve you as a local church in sending people to the mission field and as well as developing your local mission and what God is doing in those places. And so we've come today and just to give you some updates on what God is doing among us and how God is at work. We've got some exciting things to tell you, and we have such a strong foundation. As Pastor Joe said, Eugene Pretty was with Transworld Radio. He left them to start Bible Basics with this one purpose: to make the gospel clear and simple so that radio programming could be translated more easily into languages around the world. So much of the English programming was so complicated in our theological terms, it's difficult to translate into languages. And so that was the purpose of the founding of this ministry. As the ministry grew and developed in that way in radio programming, it moved into radio construction and operation and production as well. And that began in Honduras. And I'm going to ask Jerry to talk a little bit about our ministry in Honduras. He was part of that and can tell you a little bit of the story and what God is doing there today.
Thanks, Steve. I can tell that I'm on. I saw the green light and I hear myself in the monitors. How about that? It works. Now my voice will just hold out. I kind of seem to be losing my voice at the end of a cold, and so hopefully we will be able to keep on communicating. And that was the interesting thing about radio, serving at HRGS. My wife Mildred and I served there for a total of 9 years. HRGS went on the air in 1990, and it was through a mutual friend of the founding president, Dr. Eugene Pretty of Bible Basics, and Dr. Glenn Solomon, who was the president of the Baptist Ministries there in Roatan, which is a little island off the north coast of Honduras. And Bible Basics built and operated a radio station there. And Mildred and I were part of the team who successfully handed over the keys to Radio HRGS Baptist Ministries 3 years ago in September when we came back to the States. HRGS was an amazing ministry. If I came back from HRGS and died on the spot, that would have been enough. It was that thrilling to be a part of that ministry. To have friends like Raul Munoz. Raul came and helped us with our generator one time. I hope I didn't tell the story last year. If I did, I hope I forgot it. But we needed some help with our generator. Raul was a diesel mechanic, and so he came and helped us. He spent a whole week fixing our generator, and we got it running again. And I kept asking him what we owed. And he kept saying, I don't know, I haven't had time to think about it. And one day I went into Raul's shop, and every time you went into Raul's shop, you heard Radio HRGS. It was always on. And I finally said, Raul, this is getting embarrassing. I said, we owe you at least for supplies, even if you're not going to charge us for your time. He said, Jerry, I've been thinking about this. He said, I go all through this town, I live here, I go back into the back alleys and the side streets, and I hear HRGS coming out of the windows of homes where I know these people don't know the Lord. They don't know anybody else who knows the Lord. Nobody's going to invite them to church. They're hearing the gospel the only way that's possible. You're getting into their homes. He said, I want to be a part of that. So he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you will make my mother a listener club member and let me pay her monthly dues, I won't charge you anything. So few years ago, if you heard a giant clunk, that was my jaw hitting the floor. You heard it that far away. It brought tears to my eyes. It was an amazing ministry. People there called it their radio station, or they called it the radio station. And in the early years, it was the radio station. But when we left, there were lots of other radio stations, but HRGS was still the radio station. And so that was a huge honor to be a part of that. And I'm thrilled to know that it's still going on, that the local churches are still keeping that station up today. The other thing that's going on, still continuing in Honduras, is called Mobile Ministries. Don't ask me the Spanish name right now, I can't remember it right now, but it is a Spanish acronym. We have some men there who are teaching pastors. It's a mobile seminary. Because in Honduras is the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, from what I've read. And so they can't pay pastors like you pay Pastor Joe here. Those pastors have to have a regular job. I mean, you're probably not paying him enough as it is. Nobody pays a pastor what he's worth, okay? I got to tell you that right now, because I've been a deacon for many years, and I know we don't pay him what he's worth. But these guys don't get paid anything by their church. So they have to have a regular job to support their family, which means they don't have all week to prepare. It also means they don't have a way to go to seminary. They can't afford to go to seminary. They can't take their time off from work. So Mobile Ministries takes the seminary to the pastors. And so these guys, they'll drive 2-3 hours out into the bush, into these little villages in Honduras, and then these pastors will walk 2 or 3 hours to come and have intensive seminaries, and they continue this on. It was just a couple of years ago that we just had our first graduates, and they're continuing to minister that way. And in fact, we even have a new couple who's raising support to go and be part of Mobile Ministry. So it's a growing ministry, and it's one that I'm really excited about. So we've got stuff going on elsewhere, and I think Steve got some.
Yeah, I'll talk about some of that. Again, so we see in the BBI story, it started out with programming of basic Bible doctrines and teaching that led to construction and operation of radio and the spread of the gospel and people coming to Christ, as well as pastors learning from some of the programming that led then to this need to help train pastors. Around the world today, 85% of the pastors who pastor churches like this have absolutely no training at all. And so there has been a great pioneer missionary work that has gone out to plant churches in many places like Honduras. Now part of the need is to come behind and strengthen those pastors. So there is this missionary pioneering work. There's the support work that we saw of the team earlier today up front here. But there's also the strengthening of those churches on the field. And that's some of the focus that we're doing in Honduras at this time. Not only there, but in other places as well. God has opened up a door for work and ministry in the country of Africa. Last year you may have heard a little bit about Hope Radio in northern Togo, Africa, in Mondo, Togo. I just returned from there 2 weeks ago, and it's exciting to see what is happening there. The whole vision is a partnership with the Association of Baptists for World Evangelism, who built a hospital there in Mongo in northern Togo. That hospital opened up 2 years ago to begin meeting the needs of those in the community as a gospel outreach. And as I visited that hospital, in every one of the patient rooms, on the TV monitor, the Jesus film was playing. So it's a captive audience. But it's northern Togo. It's Muslim territory. And the whole goal is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Christ, which you cannot go out and proclaim the gospel in Muslim communities openly and publicly, or you will be shut down and persecuted and removed from the area. So there's limited access. And so ABWE approached us with our radio background to go in and build a radio station. Everyone there that has a cell phone has an FM signal on it, and they will be able to tune in the privacy of their home as Muslims to investigate these truths and these stories about Jesus that are being broadcast through the radio station once we begin broadcasting. And then we will do a follow-up outreach and ministry training for those that want to learn more about that. We'll be doing agricultural training and health training as well with this radio station. And so several years ago, the progress began to develop this radio station. Property was purchased. Jerry went over a couple of years back and helped put up the tower before the buildings were even done. The buildings were coming along. The roofs were put on. April 29th of this year, as the rainy season was about to begin, a major storm came through at about 11 o'clock at night with 80-mile-an-hour winds that lifted the roof off of the studio building. And as it tore off of the studio building, it hit one of the guy wires, and the tower came down. And as the guy wires snapped, it went swinging across and hit the transmitter building and took the roof off of that one. And the response of the locals is, your God is not the true God. Our God is. So we began praying for the glory of God to be known in that place. And all of those who in the community who are Muslims and understand a little bit of what's going on here expected us to go away, because that's what everyone else would do. But we've stayed the course, we've persevered, we've made the need known, and God has begun raising the funds. And I was just over there to watch the first new truss, now a steel truss instead of a wooden one, get placed on the building. And when I left, the next day the crane arrived and the trusses are all up. The roofing material has been ordered. The container that has the tower in it is out in the Atlantic somewhere right now, and we've been given a date of December 12th for that new container to get there. We'll be sending Jerry back over probably the end of January, early February, to put the tower up. But at that point, when the tower goes up, we expect to have the buildings completed and we're ready to go on the air. And that's all in God's timing. One of the great things that happened that we've been waiting on for years is to get the license and frequency to broadcast. It came in the end of October. And so we now have that. We're excited about that. So that when the tower does go up, we're ready to broadcast. As a matter of fact, we have to broadcast by the middle of March, or we'll have to reapply for all of the frequencies and other things. But God's provided. Nearly all the funds are there. Now it's just timing for the materials to get there to get this up. And our whole radio team is now assessed, and they're on the field and ready to go. So we're grateful to God how that the testimony of God's glory has been seen through the perseverance of the people there on the field who have continued to work, continued to hire locals to work in constructing these things so that this radio program will begin broadcasting. And the purpose is to get the gospel out. Let me tell you one story. While I was there, I went up to a town, or really a small village, called Gullingachi. It's about 20 miles north of Mongo. A woman who had come around the radio station and to see what was going on had come to faith in Christ. And she talked to our missionaries there. And in the process of that, her husband later came to the missionary and said to him, I want you to take this to my village north of town here, which was Gullingachi. Our missionary was amazed, because her husband is the witch doctor of the village. But he had seen such a change in his wife. He said, there's something about this. My people need to know this. And so our missionary took the Jesus film up there, showed it in a couple of different places, and the result is there are 2 churches in that village now, really 2 different tribal groups, languages. There's 2 churches that began operating in that I was able to speak in. They built their buildings in one day, because they're just thatch buildings. As a matter of fact, the church building in the southern part of Gullingachi, when you come in, you see it right on the main road. And where it is sitting, it is from here to that white door, away from the corner of the house of the witch doctor. He donated the land for the church to be built on. Okay? In the meantime, he's back in Mongo, where he has another house, and he gets sick, and he goes to the hospital. And so our missionary was contacted because they knew that he had some contact with this gentleman. He goes to the hospital and he says, can I pray with you? And here's what he says. Yeah, you can pray with me if you want. 10 other people have already prayed with me today, and I know that your God is healing me. His life has changed. The interesting thing is, at this point, he has not returned to his village. He has stayed in the town, his house there. Because if he goes back to his village, the expectations will be for him to carry on his Shama practices. And he's not ready to confront that yet. But God has used this. It doesn't matter how big the enemy is. The gates of hell cannot prevail against it. So we're excited about what God is doing already, even before we're broadcasting there. And we're trusting that God will do great things through that. The other opportunities that are coming then with our missionary and some of us is going to be going there and and training pastors as they're leading men to Christ and discipling them to begin training them as well to strengthen the churches in that place. So pray for Hope Radio in Mongo, Togo, that the construction will be completed on time and we can be broadcasting in the spring. And so God is opening up Africa. While I was in Africa, I was there for 3.5 weeks in several different countries, and I had 4 different requests to go to 4 different countries for pastoral training, and when they learned about radio, some of those things too. So we're not sure what God is going to do with all of that, but the need is great, and we're trusting that God will open the doors and enable us to come in and help in those places that are necessary. So that's what God is doing around the world. Let me talk a little bit about, or have Jerry talk a little bit about across the street, because that is so important too, and how God is using BBI and our team and the people who volunteer with us to be a part of the work of ministry here across the street.
Well, first of all, it's kind of built into what we do officially, because one of our ministries is to help a church in Clearwater produce their radio program. It's called Verse by Verse. You can hear it on 570 AM or 910 AM. It's on some of the repeater stations out in Lakeland. So 2 or 3 times a day, you can hear this tremendous expository preacher who pastors his church. I have the privilege of producing those programs, and I write and voice most of the announcements that open and close the programs. So that's where I spend a large part of my day, is ministering over the radio to my neighbors just around town here. And I hear back from people who listen to this, and some of the letters that have come in, I'm not privy to all those letters because we're not in the same office, so I don't very often. But I asked the director of the ministry the other day, I said, do you have any information from listeners as to what kind of impact it's having? And he told about one man who got saved listening to Verse by Verse in Hillsborough County Jail. He was in jail, and now he's still in jail. He's taking seminary classes, and he still stays in contact with Pastor Freeland. And so that's one way that we're ministering across the street. And there was another letter from a listener who's a snowbird who comes down every summer from Toronto, and she said that, yeah, she loves the weather and the palm trees and the swimming, and it's all really nice here, but she really enjoys Verse by Verse. That's one of her favorite aspects of coming down here to the Tampa area in the wintertime is getting to listen to this expository preaching. And so we do that in an official aspect, but it's also part of who we are. And I so much appreciated what you said, Laura, about your working with CEF right now here locally as you prepare to go overseas. Because there seems to be kind of this misconception that I can just sit here in my workaday job and never tell anybody, even that I'm a Christian, much less the good news of how to have eternal life. And then I can go overseas and everything will be different. And I'll be proclaiming the glories of God and leading people to Christ. Well, if you're not already about that here, you're not going to be about that in Honduras or in Togo or in India or in New Guinea or anywhere else. You're going to be over there like you are right here. And so when Mildred and I lived in Honduras, we were ministering across the street. We were ministering to the people who lived right behind us, to Miss Pearl, who was in her 80s and lonely, and we would go and spend time with Miss Pearl. We didn't always just work at the radio station. We were out and about in the community. We're out and about in our community here as well. We're ministering in our churches. Some of us are deacons. I'm an elder in my church, and sometimes do some other things and help out wherever I can. Mildred has a wonderful ministry with elderly ladies. She's got so many old friends. It's incredible. She's always driving these gals around and engaged with them, and she just touches their hearts. And there are so many other things why we have people who lead Bible studies. In fact, sometimes the ministry comes right to our door. One day, Steve and I we just finished eating lunch, and we were just kind of trying to get ourselves to get up and go back to our desks, and there's a knock at the door. A young man comes in the door, and he wanted to know about Bible study. And we led him to the Lord right there that day. He came in. He came to us. And we're still in touch with Julian. He's an Uber driver, and he wants to get more education, wants to go to school and study about Christ, and wants to serve. So there are just so many exciting ways that we need, I think, as whether you call yourself a missionary or not, And I know we tend to throw the term around rather loosely. There is a kind of a special calling for someone who is a missionary. But we are also, in our special gifts of evangelism, but we are always called to be ready to share our faith whenever the opportunity arises. And sometimes it'll blow you away where it'll come from. You gotta be ready.
Good. Let me give you a hook to hang on as it relates to across the street and around the world. Okay? The earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. That's God's plan. That's His purpose. That is His mission through Jesus Christ and through His people. It's accomplished by the Word of God that tells the story of God and the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. But God didn't just leave us with that on our own. In Acts chapter 1 and verse 8, Jesus said, "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses." Acts chapter 1 and verse 8 is the key verse about across the street. Every one of us who have put our faith and trust in Jesus Christ have been made alive by the Spirit of God, indwelt by the Spirit of God, gifted by the Spirit of God. And the primary purpose of the Spirit of God coming is not just to bring us comfort and come alongside of us, but to give us comfort and come alongside of us to be those witnesses with great power across the street wherever we go. Acts chapter 13, the first 2 or 3 verses. The Spirit of God, while the leaders of the church were fasting and praying and ministering to the Lord, comes down and says, "Set apart for me, Paul and Barnabas, to a ministry that would take them around the world." The response of that is that godly men and elders there agreed with the Spirit of God, and they laid hands on them, and they sent them. And so in Acts chapter 13, we see the primary purpose of the Spirit of God to set some apart from within the local church, who the local church will confirm for that ministry, and who will then send them out. So the Spirit and the church send together. That's across the street and around the world. It is the purpose for which the Spirit of God has come, to dwell among us and in us and through us, to be faithful, to partner together in those ways. And we at Bible Basics International want to be a part of that partnership. We want to serve you as a church, and we hope that you will serve along with us in the life of the ministry. Next year will be what we call BBI 45. We'll be celebrating our 45th anniversary. Now, if you know anything about organizations or other things, 40 to 45 years is about one generation. One generation of career service of a missionary. And then they reach the horizon stages of their life where they don't have the ability, the strength, the energy to continue on. And so our ministry is going through some transitions that way. And we're praying and seeking the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into His harvest field who will serve along with us to take the gospel to other places. And so we urge you to pray with us. That is the one command that all of us can do. Pray to the Lord of the harvest that He would send forth. That word "send forth" there in the original languages is the word ekbalo. I love that word, ekbalo. Okay? It is not just tapping someone on the shoulder and whispering, "I want you to go." It's the very word that is used throughout the Gospels when Jesus was casting demons out of people and sending them away. It is a forceful thrust into the mission field. And maybe that's because we're so resistant to go that we need that. But pray that God will move the hearts of people to go. And then be generous in giving. Now, again, consider Laura. We would love to see her get to the field and not be here next year at the mission conference. Right? Okay? And here's one of the things I like to say. It takes your money to get missionaries to the field. It takes your prayers to keep them there. And so be praying and be generous in giving to her and others who God has placed their hand upon and confirmed to go. So in BBI 45, we're going to be talking about the future partnerships and the rebuilding and development of this ministry. And one of the keys to that is, for us, and I hope for you, is we're local. We're just down the road a little ways on Tarpon Springs Road. And much of the ministry that is here today at BBI is because of volunteers who have come in and served in all kinds of capacities in our ministry. It doesn't take someone having to raise funds to come here, but the local churches in the region getting involved and being a part of the mission that God is doing is a great asset for us and a great partnership where we can enhance and serve your church and you can serve us in that way. And we've got a volunteer sheet over on the table there, whether it's a receptionist or someone taking care of landscaping or custodial work or helping with printing or stuffing newsletters. There's all kinds of things that we don't need to raise career staff people for. God's people are all around us. Come and be a part of it. We'd love to talk to you about that. And so BBI 45 is the future of BBI and redeveloping the ministry in that way. The last thing that I want to emphasize for you and encourage you to be a part of as well is our STAR team ministry, which we haven't really talked about yet, but it's our short-term ministry. Laura's been on some. Ashley, where's Ashley? Seven times, and I asked, "Are you going to go again?" And she said, "Yeah." So we have some brochures over here. We have a strategic short-term ministry plan. Many ministries have short-term trips that oftentimes are more beneficial for the people going than for the missionaries on the field. Okay, so we have a strategy. We go into Honduras. We pick a particular region where we work with 4 or 5 churches in that region to strengthen those churches. And we bring down a short-term team, and the first STAR discipleship team, or STAR team, is medical evangelism. And we go in and we run medical clinics all 5 days of that trip. And at the end of the medical experience that they have and diagnosis and help, they meet with a counselor to talk about their spiritual health, and the gospel is shared, and we see many people coming to Christ through that. The dates are chosen June 23rd to July 1st. We'd love for any of you to be a part of that. You don't have to be a medical person. We need counselors who will share the gospel as well, and some who will work with children and other things. We follow that week up. A few weeks later, we go back into the same village, and we take a team in who will go door to door and share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Much of that, we begin with those who came through the medical clinic. We have their information. We follow up with them so we can go into their home and not only re-share the gospel with them, but share the gospel with their family, because in that culture, they all gather around when a guest is there. And so we're going back in with the gospel again, having served them through medical needs. And then a few weeks later, we take our third team down, and that's the STAR discipleship team. And that's where we go into the local churches. We gather the people who are a part of the ministry during the summer, the new believers as well as the believers from the church, for a dual purpose: to begin discipling the new believers, but to train the church people how to carry on that discipleship with others. And then, having completed those 3 trips, we then invite those pastors and churches who have experienced the benefit of believers from the U.S. coming down with BBI to do these things, to become a part of our mobile ministry, where we will begin providing for them, coming to their town and gathering not only those 5 pastors, but others that they can invite to be a part of our pastoral training, to strengthen those pastors in handling the Word of God in those churches. And so that's our strategy and our plan. God is blessing that and multiplying that. Some of the need is we're going to need more mobile missionaries to come down and join us to do that training, because the requests are growing. And so God is at work. You know this. The big thing today is it's fake news, isn't it? So much of what we see is fake news. Don't get discouraged by what you're seeing on the news all the time. God is at work around the world, and God is at work in ways in our world that we may not be thinking about. Because the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the water covers the sea. And our privilege and our joy is we all get to be a part of that. Through praying, through giving, through going, through partnering, and through encouraging one another in these things. So thank you for the invitation to come. Thank you for the opportunity for us to update you and encourage you with what God is doing with a local ministry that has a worldwide impact that you can be a part of. And we hope we can develop that kind of relationship with you. Are there any questions that you have? And as I ask for questions, Pastor Joe, come on up so that we can close things off then appropriately. Why don't you facilitate if there's any questions?
Yeah, you have a question. They do so many different things. You guys have so many things. I encourage you, talk with them, talk with Barneses, talk with Laura, talk with Alan afterward. Take a few minutes. When we close, there isn't really much to do. If you're the last one at your table, just fold up everything, throw it all in the trash can. All right? Unless it's like a Bible. Don't throw away a Bible. All right, fold up, throw it in the trash can. Don't need much for the tables, don't need much for chairs. We'll deal with all that stuff later. What else can we be praying for? So we're going to pray for Pastor Herman. Yeah.
Pray for the rebuild in Togo, the completion of that work. And then the next biggest prayer is just the need for volunteers, for people who will come in and serve maybe an hour or two once a week. Some may serve more than that.